Imagine waking up suddenly to find yourself in the middle of an endless white hell.
Mayday, mayday,
The
losing
temperature,
altitude fast!
30 degrees below zero. Food, nothing but a few small pieces of chocolate. And hope? It completely vanished when you heard over a tiny radio that the world had given up on you, legally declaring you dead and calling off the search. This is not a work of fiction. This is one of the most brutal and extraordinary survival stories in human history. A story that forced a group of young men to make the most terrifying decision of their lives, eating the flesh of their deceased friends just to stay alive. How did a sports team's journey turn into an epic battle against death? And how did two of them pull off an impossible miracle that shocked the world? Put on your coats, and let's tell the story of the miracle of the Andes. It all began on October 13th, 1972. A Uruguayan Air Force plane, carrying 45 passengers, mostly a young college rugby team, along with their relatives and friends, was crossing the towering Andes Mountains on their way to Chile. Inside the cabin, the atmosphere was filled with laughter, dreams, and youthful excitement. But the mountains were hiding a fatal trap. Due to thick fog and a navigational error, the pilot believed they had already cleared the mountain range and began descending. In reality, he was heading straight into the razor-sharp peaks. Suddenly, the plane slammed into a mountain ridge. The tail tore off, the wings flew apart, and the fuselage became a metallic missile, sliding at a terrifying speed down a snowy slope before coming to a stop in a desolate, frozen valley, completely cut off from civilization, at an altitude of over 3,500 meters. When the plane finally stopped and silence fell, the scene was catastrophic. Out of 45 passengers, many died instantly from the violent impact. The survivors found themselves trapped in a breathtaking environment, with no winter clothing, no medical supplies, and worst of all, no food. The young men used the wrecked fuselage as a shelter, sleeping tightly packed together to keep each other warm against the freezing, deadly cold. On the 11th day, a crushing blow broke their hearts completely. Through a small transistor radio they managed to fix, they tuned into the news. The voice from the speaker coldly stated, "The search for the missing plane has been called off. It will resume in the spring, only to recover the bodies." The world had forgotten them. They were officially dead to everyone, except to themselves. As days turned into weeks, the few scraps of chocolate ran out. Starvation began gnawing at their bodies, and their limbs were dying from frostbite. In the depths of this despair, the terrifying question no one dared to voice finally came out. How are we going to survive? The only option left was unthinkable. The bodies of their deceased friends and relatives lay outside, preserved and frozen in the snow. Bitter debates followed, where souls wept before eyes did. There was deep religious, moral, and psychological resistance. How could they eat the flesh of those they had shared laughs and dreams with just days before? But the human instinct for survival ultimately won. They made a sacred pact among themselves. "If I die, I give you permission to use my body so that you may live." And so, they began eating the flesh of the dead. As their absolute only way to survive, the tragedy didn't stop there. Shortly after, a massive avalanche struck while they were sleeping inside the wreckage, burying them alive under the snow for 3 full days and claiming the lives of 8 more survivors. After more than 2 months in this icy cage, as the snow began to slightly melt, the young men realized that waiting meant certain death. Someone had to move. 2 heroes from the team volunteered, Nando Parrado and Roberto Canessa. Without climbing gear, without professional clothing, and with exhausted bodies lacking the barest nutrients, they began a suicidal trek. They climbed a massive mountain peak, reaching a staggering altitude of 4,600 meters. But when they reached the summit, they didn't see a nearby city or valley. They saw an endless sea of frozen mountain peaks covered in snow. Any normal human would have laid down to die right there. But they kept walking. They walked for 10 full days through rock and ice, driven by sheer hope and the lives of their 14 friends waiting back in the wreckage, fighting for every breath. On the 10th day, the snow began to disappear. Green grass emerged, and suddenly, across a rushing river, they spotted a man riding a horse. It was a Chilean shepherd named Sergio Catalan. Because of the roaring river, shouting was useless. The shepherd tied a piece of paper and a pencil to a rock and threw it across the water. Nando Parrado grabbed the pencil and, with a trembling hand, wrote, "I come from a plane that fell in the mountains. My friend is injured out there, and we have no food. Please, when are you coming to save us?" On December 21st, 1972, helicopters swooped through the peaks to deliver a miracle. After 72 days in the grip of the mountains, cold, and starvation, only 16 people survived out of the 45 who started the journey. Globally, this event became known as the Miracle of the Andes, a timeless story that reminds us of the true power of human will, and that hope can be born from the deepest corners of hell. If you enjoyed this powerful story, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more journeys into history and human endurance. See you in the next video.